because underwriting, as much as you know of it being a science, right? It's also an art. You can manipulate the
Yep.
numbers to anywhere any way you want to, and you can also emphasize certain numbers any way you want to. And we started thinking, okay, well, this is how I would underwrite it because I have my friends and family investing in this, and this is what I want, and this is how I create our returns. All of that stuff, we just started getting on the same page. Started just as an exercise of really just making sure we were on the same page.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Powell Chee and Juan Yang. I know Powell and Chee for a couple of years now. We met, I think that was in maybe early 2021, I believe was our sort of first conversation. But guys, I'm gonna let you kind of do your own background. I think it's better coming from the guest. So first of all, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for taking the time out. I know at least Powell's traveling right now and still making time for this. So thank you guys. But why don't we just first tell the listeners a little bit about yourselves?
Absolutely. I'll go first here. So I'm Powell Chee, if you don't know who I am, but I know you know who I am, basically, but for your listeners. And so, just going back a little bit about my bio, I live in Southern California, lived here for the past 12, 13 years or so. And started my real estate journey around 2015 when I bought my very first single family house. That was a house that I had in Kansas City. And even though I lived in LA, that was a big step for me to buy something that far away, sight unseen, never saw it, never visited it, never. Eventually, I sold it, and I still never saw it, or never visited it. I always thought that was kind of interesting to do that. So, and then in 2017, I was able to buy my own multifamily property. Got into multifamily. I really figured that with one single family house, it just was not going to get me there fast enough. So I really wanted to scale up faster. So I bought multifamily property in 2017. 2018, bought another one. 2019, we could talk to Juan and I will talk to you about. We partnered together, and 5 different syndications. We're general partners on all of them, all multifamily properties. And then 2020, we took a little break because of COVID, and so we were like, "Hey, we got to make sure we know what we're doing here with investing wise." And a lot of people are investing with us, so we want to make sure that there's a lot of uncertainty going around with COVID. So we actually decided to add another asset class to our mix, and that was self-storage. And we said we're not going to buy any multifamily for at least 6 months, but while we're not buying anything, let's go ahead and take a look at self-storage. And so we did. We ended up feeling very good about self-storage and about the investing in it, but it was all theoretical at that point, right? So it was all on paper. And so we decided, hey, let's go out and buy one. Let's buy our very first one. We bought our very first one in January 2021. I'll just fast forward it to this moment. So about 2.5 years later, we're at 16 different locations. We're at 5,000 units and about 650,000 square feet. And just on a sort of I know probably a little bit more personal. I was able to retire, I guess, almost a year ago exactly, from my corporate job. So there was a point where I was like just doing too much with corporate job and self-storage and real estate and multifamily, and it was just too much. And I just got to that point where I talked to my wife and said, "Hey, we need to make a decision here. I need to do one or the other." And so I heavily influenced her to choose real estate. She was like, "Why don't you just keep your job?" And I was like, "That's not going to work." And I was like, "I don't think that's going to work anymore. I did it for too long." But that's what brings us up to the current time. But I'll let Juan go over his bio as well. So yeah, you go ahead, Juan.
All right, awesome. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, my name is Juan, and if I tell a little bit of my background, well, actually, I grew up in Argentina, in South America, and then came to US when I was 17 years old, and then joined the army. And basically, right after army, when I was done, when I was honorably discharged from the army, I started pretty quickly start venturing different businesses. There was a lot of failure, but also at the end we end up doing a clothing business, and then that has been very successful. Well, that with that seed money, basically in 2017ish, so around there, I start focusing my towards real estate, and then I start buying some duplexes and things like that. And to make it very funny is that I was kind of focusing on the Indianapolis, Indiana. That was my focus. And then I met Powell through a meetup and in LA, and then found out that we were actually competing each other with the same property. So to make a long story short, we decided that since let's not compete, let's have a partnering out, right? So that was basically how we actually the partnership has been ventured from that point on. And from there, and then we start purchasing apartments together, and then all the way we came to self storage. And then I don't want to bore you, so everything else after that actually Paul actually mentioned already. So here we are.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool story, like sort of how you cross paths and met, and that's funny that you're both sort of competing on a property. With I think a couple of sort of backstory things I want to touch on. Powell, I know you mentioned you sort of bought that place sight unseen, sold it, so you never had it. And I think that's probably worth talking a little bit more about, just given that I know that's not your focus now, but a lot of people have a lot of nervousness, limiting beliefs, worry about investing in real estate just in general. And so I think, the fact that that was your first foray into it, and you did that without any I don't know if you did it without hesitation, but you did it. So what was kind of the thinking behind that? How did you even sort of fall into that?
Yeah, that was a big step. So like I had probably wanted to do real estate for years, right? Decades, right? My family would always talk about it. My dad owned a couple houses and done pretty well with them, all in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so he was always telling us, hey, you guys got to get involved in real estate. So, we always wanted to, but I never understood how I could invest outside of my 2 hour drive, 2 hour radius from me. Just didn't make sense. And, and it wasn't until I was listening to a lot of podcasts and listening to other people um, who were doing it, and they may have just fell into it. Like they may live in Ohio and then they retired into Florida, but they still own the houses in Ohio. And I was like, what? How does that work? Like, how do you do that? And that was just hearing that's kind of like more and more. I just thought, you know what? All these people are doing it. It's not very common. Well, it wasn't as common then. At least it just wasn't out there as much. I'm sure there's a lot of people that were doing it, but I didn't know anybody. And so then I started thinking about it, and like, if these people can do it, then I mean, I should be able to do it. Like, I should be able to like at least follow their footsteps and be able to do it. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. That I'm owning something that I really can't just drive to. And um, and if I can own something outside of where I live, then this really just opens up the whole United States for me, right? Because now it's not just, hey, I can only invest in Kansas City or Indianapolis. It's like there's a lot of land in between Southern California and Indianapolis that it covers, so I can invest pretty much anywhere, right? And that was, when you think about it, it's like we don't live in the times where our parents grew up, where, hey, if you have an issue at your apartment, you have to get on a phone call, and when you get on a phone call, you leave a message for somebody, and it's something that's like they're going to get to their answering machine later, right? You don't live in those times anymore, right? You can get on FaceTime, or you can video chat with people, you instant message with people. So it's one of those things that like I just realized it's not we don't live in those times anymore, and technology is constantly improving, getting better. So I just thought, okay, this can be done, right? And I'm not like I said, not reinventing the wheel, not as smart as everybody else. I'm not as dumb as everybody else. It's just like I can do it if they can do it. And with that in mind, I just kind of took the leap and said, I'm just going to go for it. Right. And then after I did it, that's when I started my meetup. And it was really about investing from California outside of California and being able to do that. And since that's what really kind of propelled me to do it from not only a single family point of view, but into the multifamily. And then nowadays, it's very common that you're going to be that you're going to be investing outside of where you live.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, and it's looks like we lost Juan there. Hopefully, he comes back in.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of commonplace now, but I mean, a lot has changed in the last 3 to 5 years in terms of technology and things like that. Like you can effectively run a business mostly from your phone. So you can, people can travel, you can be or you're bringing a laptop with you or whatever it is. I mean, there's technology has made those things possible at even a higher scale. And it also, you mentioned your portfolio of self-storage now, like it's all over the country, right? And you, because of technology, because of boots on the ground, teams, things like that, you can grow your business to a much higher scale than if you were to say, I'm just going to invest within the hour or 2 hours around me. And I think realizing that those options are available to you does open up the number of opportunities that you can take advantage of. So I think it's just a point worth mentioning.
Can I just give you a really quick thing on that? Because it was a big leap for me. It was a big leap for me. But once I did it, I kind of just said, I'm going to take off. But I tell this to people sometimes just to think about, because a lot of people in California, like where we live, Southern California, they're willing to invest in Las Vegas, which is a 4-hour drive, right? And it's like, yeah, sure, I'll invest in this. No problem, right? And then I ask, well, what about Phoenix? And they're like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, well, Phoenix is a 6-hour drive, right? From LA. Okay. I'm like, well, if you're willing to drive 6 hours because you feel that's our backyard, or they feel comfortable because people have invested there, and you could get there kind of quick in a day or half day. I'm like, if you're willing to drive 6 hours, if you just get on a plane for 4 hours, you're pretty much across the United States, right? You're at about 80-90% of the United States. So if you add an hour in there, you cover the whole United States. So I'm like, if you're willing to drive 6 hours to Phoenix because you feel that's somewhat close of our backyard out of LA, you just get on a plane, you know what I mean? And yeah, it'll take, it's just kind of a mind thing, right? It's just kind of a little bit of a way to just relate to, the distance.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I mean, I do the bulk of my investing in Atlanta, and it's a 4.5-hour flight, and most of the time I do it as a red eye. So I literally just sleep my way there, and I can get there and do what I need to do in a couple of days and head right back. So I think it's again, right along the lines of that technology discussion, we can get most where we need to be relatively easy at this point. Juan, I wanted to ask you, I didn't know about the clothing line or this this part of your background. How did, I guess, how do you make that transition? Because I think listeners are going to think, sort of in the military, into clothing, fashion, and then into real estate. Those are probably some, at least on the surface, big leaps. But tell us a little bit about those transitions.
Yeah, great question. Well, basically, just to give an answer, just one answer will be my daughter. So along the line, when I was, being very successful in this clothing business, my daughter was born, and that's my first child. And then that kind of made me to rethink about everything, because having a clothing line, it's like I was not free on time or space, meaning I had to be there a certain hour. And then it's very competitive market, to be honest, right? A lot of marketing, and then you have to compete, and you always need to be on top of it. So it just didn't give me enough time to. And then I was kind of thinking, like, is this something that I can do forever, right? Am I gonna be able to? I'm kind of missing out my daughter here, right? So is this something that I can do forever like this? And I kind of thought about it. It was like a nightmare to me. It's like, no, I can't. This is no way. So from that point on, and I kind of start uh, venturing different opportunities. Like, what could be something that I can actually laser focus that will give me not just financial freedom, but freedom of time as well, right? And also the space. Like, yeah, if I need to go somewhere with my daughter or my family somewhere for a couple of months or something like that, then what, right? So, and to make a long story short, to be honest, it was not something that it was not an answer that came out like a couple of days after. And I've been kind of like thinking about it, like really concentrating what I wanted it and then how I can make this happen. And it took me 6 months. It took me 6 months, and then it's and that point it's like, okay, I think real estate asset could be something that will make me to achieve that dream because uh, the asset could be anywhere, but the asset itself will actually generate income for you. Then, if that's the case, if I can have a multiple asset like that, then definitely I could be free from time, finance, and space. So that was pretty much the reason why. So if I had to say one word, the reason me transitioning from clothing business to real estate will be because of my daughter.
Yeah, I can relate to that very well. My son being born has been a big part of my transition as well.
Awesome.
So I think it's just, yeah, you realize, Powell talked about leaving his job, right? You just realize that you start to, I felt like the scale has tipped, right? Like the importance of money versus time. It's like, I mean, we used to think more money, more money, more money. And now it's like, what can I do to make more time? And the money will come. And it's like, it's not like we're not in real estate to not make money, but it's the freedom of time. I think that really is maybe the most compelling part. You mentioned that you guys met at a meetup. And a lot of people always say like, hey, you should go to meetups. That's how you, but, and it is true that a lot of partnerships are formed from these meetups. And so how did that, I don't imagine, I guess you had this common deal, but like, how did that look like for you in the beginning? Because obviously now you've gone on to have a ton of success together. So how did you, I guess, develop that partnership? I think is an interesting thing for people to hear about.
One, you want to take this? Or you want me to take it?
Yeah, you take it, man. Hey, you're the host on the meetup, so.
Yeah. So, one came to one of my very first meetups. It was, I don't know, my first or second meetup that I had. So I created this meetup, and eventually it kind of blew up and everything. But at the very beginning, one and I met there, and I remember him telling me about the deal and he was looking at and talking about Indianapolis, and then he started started showing me his underwriting, right, on deals that he was looking at, and I was thinking, this is pretty forthcoming, very trusting of somebody to be showing me their underwriting when, like, he's showing me his deals that he's looking at. I could very easily go to those same deals and just say, oh, I'm just gonna, put in my offer. It's $10,000 more than this guy's offering, right? And I could probably take the deal, right? I already have an established property over there. I already, know people there. And I was like, man, that's pretty forthcoming that I could just steal this deal really, really easily. So I started sharing my underwriting with one and just sharing, oh, this is what I thought about the property as well. And then, so we were, comparing, and then he'd say, oh, well, what about the expenses here? Whatever. And so we just started doing kind of like just general underwriting together. This is what I think, this is what he thinks, and then comparing neighborhoods, and then we started doing this on multiple properties, right? And started, hey, what about this property? And so we're now sharing deals with each other because, hey, I found a deal, or I found this one, I underwrote it. This is how I underwrote it. What do you think, right? And then now it's like back and forth. And what this helped us do is really to establish trust in each other that, hey, we could very easily take these deals from each other, right? But we weren't going to do that. So it established sort of the work ethic, like the business ethics that we had, right? But then it also established underwriting, a similar vein and thinking of underwriting, right? Because underwriting, as much as that being a science, right, it's also an art. You can manipulate the numbers to any way you want to, and you can also emphasize certain numbers any way you want to. And we started thinking, okay, well, this is how I would underwrite it because I have, my friends and family investing in this, and this is what I want, and this, this is how I create our returns, all of that stuff. We just started getting on the same page, started just, as an exercise of really just making sure we were on the same page. Eventually we just said, what, instead of like us both kind of bidding on these deals and saying, hey, if I get the deal, I'll bring you in as a partner, or you get the deal, you bring me as a partner. Let's just, like, instead of both doing the same work, let's just one of us, we can, underwrite the deal like as one, as a single group, rather than us both doing it individually. And so that's what brought us together as partners and deals. And that was really fortunate. I would say that was a certainly great way to do it. I mean, it was kind of a lucky way to do it. We kind of fell into it. At least I feel like we kind of fell into it. But we would never have met if we didn't meet at that one meetup. We would have never connected. We would have never partnered together, right? So that's very fortunate that happened. But then, there was a lot of the business ethics that we were on the same page with. There was a lot of the underwriting that we felt like, the ways that we could change it, that we felt like we were very consistent with. But beyond that, it's the business relationship has developed a lot more into like a lot of personal ethics, right, and standards that we both share, because that's not something we were necessarily talking about on our first couple of like times we were underwriting. But I think Juan and I both have sort of visions for our family, our futures, things that we'd like to help out with, whether that's charities or organizations or groups of people, and that we want to help each other out to be able to do those things. And that's where the business partnership can really survive the long term, right? In the short term, yes, you can get on the same page with somebody. Yes, you can underwrite together. But if you don't really have those personal standards or ethics that really match up with the other person, then you could see this kind of like starting to fade in the future. But Juan and I have, we're basically been on the same page with all of that for years now, and we continue to talk about like our dreams or what we want to do, and we're both really on the same page with a lot of that.
Yeah, that's great. Juan, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I cannot add anything to that. I think that is all. To be honest, yeah, that is awesome.
It was a great description of what happened with you guys, but like that's what should happen. That's how business partnerships should be formed. I think a lot of people in the space get to the point where they just want to do a deal. They just want to, I want to get in a deal. I want to do something. And it sometimes people are partnering maybe for not the right reasons. They're having, just that need to do something. And so they can end up in a challenging partnership. So you guys, I think, approached it, just the right way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. You were doing multifamily together, and then moved to self-storage. And that's just for listeners, like I met you in I was, I guess, given your contact information to talk about multifamily. And the very first call we had, you're like, oh, we don't do that anymore. We're doing self-storage. And so what made you, I guess, decide to make that transition? I know you said 2020, you're sort of re-looking or, revisiting where you wanted to go. What were some of the factors that made you switch?
Yeah, I can take this one here. One of the things, I guess, what I'd like to tell people this is that Juan and I are looking for what we consider the best deals, right? The best deals. And those best deals are not just storage or multifamily. They can be any sort of asset class. We're open to other asset classes. I used to feel like I was a multifamily only guy. I was 100% multifamily. That's all I'm going to do is that's just stick with multifamily. Then when like I mentioned, when COVID happened, gave me a kind of perspective to look at other asset classes. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I'm just going to drop multifamily and I'm just only going to do self-storage, right? That's all we're going to do is self-storage. But I don't think we're really like that. We really feel like we're more like deal hunters. And whether that's the best deal is in multifamily or storage or another asset class or something completely totally different, we are we are going to find what's the best deal for us and our investors. And that best deal, yes, returns are important, right? So that's going to be important, but that's not the only thing, right? We're looking at things like where it's located, who is the team, um, obviously the returns, what's the business plan, how easy it is to make that business plan happen. What are the types of asset classes? What, is this an ABC deal? There's many different things that go into it besides just what's the returns? Is this a 17% or is this a 7 or 16.5%? What are the returns that I'm going to get? So we look at a number of different things and we're looking for what's the best deals. It just so happens that in the last 2.5 years, the best deals we found have been in storage, right? And that's just the best deals we found. That doesn't mean that's the best deals that are out there, right? Other people are finding better deals in their own asset class. That's fine. Just comparatively, these are the best deals that we found, and so these are what we bring to our investors. But if we found a different deal that we felt like, hey, this is actually a better deal in a different asset class, we would be open to that, to bringing that to our investors and running that as well. So it's kind of a long-winded way of me saying we're not just a self-storage group and feeling like that self-storage is the only thing that we'll do, or we're open to other asset classes as well.
And just to add to that, the reason why we chose self-storage at that time is because the transition, right? Because we have some kind of like a plan for the self-storage. Because there was technology there already that was able to operate this unmanned, right? So we knew, but conventionally, I mean, I'll say about, I don't know, maybe about like 90% or something. They're all run conventionally, meaning having an actual employee there in the place and all that, right? So we saw huge value just changing the operation to unmanned. Is that something and that was very new at the time that we were studying it, and we saw that technology was there, that is possible. So like how Powell mentioned earlier, is that one thing is knowing as a theory and then really doing it, right? So when we actually did the first deal, we did a very small deal first with our friends and family, and then we implement that the unmanned facility type of operation there, and then it worked. and we were able to cut a huge amount, huge expense, which actually boosts our NOI, net operating income, on the deal, just decreasing your expense. And then happens to be in the self-storage. Yeah, it really depends on which state or where it's located at. But I would say the top three, the biggest expense on self-storage is either property tax, insurance, or payroll. And then if you're able to knock down one of those top three expenses, it was automatically we're able to boost our NOI exponentially from day one. So that's one of the things that we saw that was a value there. And then we implemented that area, that factor there, and then it worked. If you see it today, now you'll see like the self-storage industry are moving towards what we actually did about 2 years ago. More and more, we can see that they're actually implementing this type of unmanned here, and they're still very small, but they are moving towards that. I think the timing was great for us at the time, and COVID was in place, so everything made a really good excuse for us to go unmanned, right? So I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think the whole idea, right, when we're investing is be opportunistic, like you said, Powell, right? We're looking for the best deals, and through different market cycles, it might not always be the same asset class. It doesn't necessarily mean that, for these number of years, self-storage is going to be the best, and for these number of years, multifamily. There's opportunities, but if you're only looking at one specific thing, then you can really kind of limit your ability to take advantage of those opportunities. And then, what you mentioned, Juan, is your having your business plan, having your strategy and your kind of vision thought out as to how we're going to make those things work, how you're going to make that not just, sort of surface level, oh, this is a good deal because we got it at a low price. Like, what can I do for my business plan to improve the NOI so that, when it comes down to it, it's going to cash flow better and we're going to have a better exit opportunity, on the back end. So I think like those those
Mhm.
couple of strategies together, like that's what we were trying to do, especially in a commercial real estate. As commercial real estate investors, those are the goals really, overall. um with the self-storage deals, and you guys have, quite a large portfolio now. You mentioned you're trying to do this mostly unmanned. Is that the strategy sort of at all of the facilities? Are you whether you come into it and maybe they have staff and then you're kind of trying to transition, is that kind of your overall business plan for all of them?
You want to take that one? You can take it.
No, go ahead, Tom.
Okay. So yes, in general, the answer is yes. It's going to be our business plan for all of our properties. So all of our properties are, unmanned, and they will be like that in the future as well. So we just see the opportunity, like Juan was saying, of the world, or at least the United States, is with COVID kind of pushing this along of like, hey, you've got to be able to be contactless, or not have people can kind of self-serve and be okay with that. The world is moving towards that in general, and the self-storage industry is also moving towards that. We would just like to be at the forefront of that to make that happen sooner, so that we're catching the transitions of, hey, we're buying properties and they all have manned operations traditionally run, and we're going to turn them into like use our model as remote management going forward, and be able to just expand with all of our properties in that.
Yeah. What do you look for in terms of exit strategy for these? Are you trying to do long-term hold? Are you trying to, kind of have them for 3 to 5 years? Maybe it's a mix. What is your outlook on kind of the long term?
Yeah, I'll take this. I'll take this. So I think the long term could be various type of exit strategy here. But if I had to tell you, one of them could be that since we are actually we acquiring all this property under one brand, Korean Storage. So everything is going under this one big umbrella called. So basically, we're building a brand. Put it that way, right? So one of the good ways that you can exit is that when you actually build under one brand and then create this one big portfolio, and there's a chance that you can exit as a portfolio sale. So when you exit as a portfolio sale, what happens is that there are different buyers, right? Obviously, if you, comparing to selling one by one. But when you actually sell as a portfolio, most likely you're gonna be able to attract these institution buyers who is willing to pay the premium. Basically, we are putting all this thing together and then bow tie it very well, very nice, and then serve them, saying, "Hey, here you go." There's a portfolio of 16 different locations, or 20, whichever how we increase. And those institutional buyers, they don't like to buy something that is under a certain amount of dollar, right? So we can meet that amount of dollar and then just basically sell as a portfolio. And that'll be one of the exit strategies.
Mm-hmm. So in general, like what we have, and we talk to our investors about, is that we have a number of different exit strategies. And initially what we show in our pro forma and then what we model out is a very basic, bland 5-year sale. Okay, if we sell the property in 5 years, this is what we expect to make as our projection, right? And we say that there's no refinance in the middle there. It's just 0 to 5 years sell. This is what we're showing as our returns. But in the background, we tell them, hey, this is really like plan C. Okay, this is plan C. We have other plans that we're going to try to achieve, and we think they're much more powerful plans. But if we're not able to achieve them, at least we can sort of back out with just saying, hey, we're going to sell in 5 years. Now, some of those plans might be to, hey, we can refinance this property because we bought them at such a low value that we increase that value, we can refinance, and then return capital. Our plan is to maybe return 100% of our capital, not just like part of it. If we can turn 100% of our capital, then we could own the property for a longer term. We can hold it for, say, every 5 years, and then decide what we want to do. Do we want to refinance and pull money out every 5 years, or do we potentially just want to sell after a certain point? So we have that plan. We also, we, like Juan said, we have a potential portfolio sale. So this is becoming a much I would say much more tangible now. When we had, 2 or 3 properties, it really wasn't an idea of like, hey, let's package that deal and sell it off to an institution. But now that we got 16 different locations, it's becoming a little bit more tangible that people are interested in just buying the whole portfolio. And as we get more, as we collect more, it's going to be, we think that's just going to increase. And so we have these other plans, but we just don't model that out, right? Because it's too early to model that out for our investors. So we say, hey, if these work out better, we will try to do something like it. If they don't work out as well and plans just don't turn out to be, those plan A, plan B, well, we've already modeled the plan C. So if you're comfortable with that, that is something that we could fall back to.
Yeah, that sort of whole strategy, kind of under promise, over deliver. And so if you're what you're presenting is, sort of worst case scenario is a 5-year hold, which is like kind of the norm, right? It's like the standard syndication 5-year hold, good returns, that kind of thing. If you can make it even better than that, then awesome, right? That's kind of, and that's, again, when it comes to commercial investing and syndicate, that's kind of what we're all looking for. Let's sort of look at it from the worst case scenario, and then let's do everything we can to be better than that. So I think it's a great strategy and a way of having, sort of multiple exit strategies. And I think, yeah, clearly well on your way to being able to have, sort of that large portfolio exit with the amount of with the size of the portfolio at this point. I want to switch gears, guys, because I just want to make sure we have time for this. I want to get to ask you the questions I ask every guest, and since there's 2 of you, then we'll have time for each. But basically, and I have a little bit of a feeling of where this is going to go, but first question I ask every guest is based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. But what is your why? What's driving you, kind of further and further into this, successful career?
Well, I'll just start here. Like for me, it's like my why is it's all about living the extraordinary life, right? And I want to be able to live the extraordinary life. And that means like I'm not like freedom. I have the freedom and the freedom of time and to do really what I want to do, right? To not be constricted by finances or just obligations, things like that I don't want to do. Really, is to be able to to enjoy life kind of to its fullest, right? And that's really what's driving me, and to be able to pass that on to my son, and also include not just my future generation, but like I'm very close to my brothers and my mom and dad and my nieces and nephews. I want to be able to like instill them in them that they can take this path as well. That they can look to their uncle or their brother or their son, and like they can enjoy this stuff too, and I can bring this to them along with my extended family here. So that's for me. It's really about providing that opportunity and being able to live that life and be able to pass that on to those who I'm close with.
Great. How about you, Juan?
Yeah, I think I kind of briefly said about my why a little bit when I talked about my daughter. So that's how I initiated my why, really knowing what I really wanted it, and which in a conclusion at the time came out to be a freedom of finance, time, and space. So those are the 3 type of freedom that I was and I am kind of going forward towards it. And then I am kind of partially doing that right now because I don't know if I told you about this, but we and our family, we decided to live in South Korea for about a year or 2 going forward. And then I'll tell you what, real estate, this business allowed you to do that. Well, obviously I need to work in a different time zone. That's the caveat here, but yeah, ultimately that's my goal and that's where I'm aiming. But lately another thing kind of came out was that not only for myself, but also I wanted to be the kind of be a part of a source of blessing, put it that way. Is that it's not about how much I get or how much benefit I get. It's more like also how much benefit and blessing can I actually flow through me to others as well. I'm in the very early stage on that thought right now. So I don't know what kind of venture or what kind of things gonna pop up. But definitely, I like to be one of the source of blessing for others as well. So we'll see on that.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Love it. Have you already moved, or you're planning on moving in the future?
Well, my wife is already in Korea. We already got a place in there. So I came. Right now I'm in Dallas. So I need to kind of get rid of my car and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of doing that at this moment, and hopefully I can go back. Hopefully I don't know, like early September or something like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank
So
you.
his whole family is there. He was already there, and
Yeah.
he came back just to go
Just
ahead
for
and
this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Just for you, Jason.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's good for you. I'm very happy for you. That sounds awesome. Well, maybe you've already done this, but the next question is, tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge. And Juan, you may have already gone ahead with that. So we'll leave this one for Powell. But basically, just something to let people know you better. Doesn't have to be business related. Anything you're comfortable sharing.
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, if you do know me, you know that I love beach volleyball. That's my thing. Saturday, Sunday, I'm out at the beach playing beach volleyball. But one thing that I don't know, I kind of hold this as a proud moment. Has nothing to do with real estate, but I've started a fire with just like sticks, right? Just sticks, rubbing sticks, and it took me 4.5 hours of going like this with a stick to start a fire. But I was like, I'm determined to do this. I kind of like researched it, figured out how, and I was like, I just want to be able to like say that I could start fire with just rubbing sticks together. And so it was one of those things that I was with my friends. So I was with a bunch of friends the whole time we were at a pool party, and they're like, "Are you gonna hang out with us, or are you just gonna go there and just like rub your sticks together?" And I'm like, "No, I got to do this. That's what I got to do. I'm here to do this." Like, and so it took me 4.5 hours of them berating me and making fun of me and laughing at me and the whole time, and I'm just like, "No, I got to get this done." And then when I finally did it, I was super happy. I was literally like Tom Hanks. I was like, I've got fire, yeah. And I was thinking, I was like, there's probably just not that many people in the world that, very small, selected people have ever or can do that, right? And I was like, I don't know, one of the few people that can do that in the world. So that was a accomplishment that I'm happy to say I should put on my resume.
That's
awesome.
Definitely very few people would have that weren't in the wilderness and under threat of survival taken 4.5 hours trying to do it. So that's really a testament to your determination and willingness to stick it out. So that's fantastic. Yeah. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you guys, what's the best way? We'll put it whatever you want in the show notes.
Sure. I mean, for me, they can reach out to me on Instagram. Instagram is the easy way. You can DM me, Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. Those are probably the two. I'm on the other platforms as well, but I just not that frequently. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram, I would say, are good ones for me. And then if they, if they're interested, they can always email me too. Just Powell at radiantwe.com. So POWELL at radiant, RADIANTWE.com.
How about you, Juan?
Yeah, okay. Well, Powell is the social guy. I'm the one in the back in the current type of guy. So I don't really have much social media out there that I'm exposing myself. But if they want to reach me directly, also they can reach me to WON at radiantwe.com. Yeah, that'll be the contact.
All right, we'll put those in the show notes. Final question for you guys. What piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to get started in real estate? Whether it's any type, single family, multifamily, storage, whatever it is, what would you tell them to kind of get them started? They've heard your story, they're inspired. What would you tell them to kind of get them off and running?
Why don't you go ahead, Juan?
I think if I had to give one word for that is they need to get out from their comfort zone. I think that's the biggest one. Because even me, right? Like it was like I'm kind of almost like going to the unknown, right? Stepping myself to the unknown. Mm-hmm. And then you just have to be comfortable enough to be able to get off for your comfort zone. So that'll be my advice.
Awesome.
I would say that in terms of like practical steps, you really need to get educated and get around people, right? So that means, education you can get from things like this, like being on your podcast or listening to your podcast, Jason. There's other free resources out there, listen to many podcasts in whatever field of real estate that you're in. But also you need to be around people that are doing this. So if you're around the people that are doing what you want to be doing, a lot of times they see your problems as very small and they can help you get over them really quickly, right? So initially, like I talked about, like, hey, I don't know how to invest out of state, right? Well, now if you came to me and that was your issue, I would just be able to tell you and give you many examples of not just my stuff, but like many people's stuff, including yours, Jason, that you can invest out of state. It's not a barrier really anymore. And so whatever, sort of hang up you have, you get around those people that are investing in real estate or around real estate and they're doing what you want to be doing, they'll be able to help you get through whatever hang up that is.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Just getting that person that, maybe isn't years and years ahead of you, maybe they're a little bit ahead of you, but also, sort of tying the two together, that's not always going to be comfortable. Right? So as Juan said, like sometimes going to those meetups, going up and talking to people, whatever networking technique you're going to use, sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. And I will be the first to admit it's very uncomfortable for me. And so it is so true. Like the way to, expand your business, have growth, personal growth even is to get out there and do it. Just go talk to someone and then talk to another. So, just kind of, make it step by step. So, this has been great, guys. I want to say thank you. First of all, thanks for coming on, taking the time out. I know you're both very busy. I'm glad we were able to coordinate this. So thank you very much for coming in and sharing your story with my listeners.
Absolutely, Jason. Hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And folks listening, I know you're going to get a ton of value out of this episode. So please like, rate, and review so we can get more great guests like Powell and Juan. And thank you all for listening.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Ballara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.